Hello, Dan Cianci and Jason Rates here. We are going to break down and talk about a frontline series that we're doing on referrals inside financial centers. Today, we held a podcast, webcast, if you will. We really dove down into the important things inside the financial centers that you need to be doing to connect with people and individuals. Um, what we plan on doing is, as we go through our series, which is a six episodes of training and building culture inside branch financial centers. We're going to do this, we're going to do this. We're going to sit down and debrief and kind of talk about some of the examples that we see on a daily basis. So I'm here again with my good friend Jason Rates with Speak with People. Jason, what's going on, buddy? How are you?
Good. I'm glad we're diving in and can talk a little bit deeper, a couple more, more ideas and kind of drill home on some thoughts on some of this training that we're doing. And we're here.
It's exciting.
It took a few months to get to this place.
I know. I think about, when we first came up with this concept and where we are today, it's been pretty amazing how much we had to sell the vision to so many people, right? We had to sell the vision to, number one, to, my firm, compliance, marketing, executive leaders, sales leaders. And then right. And then we had to go and sell the vision to program managers, bank managers, licensed banker managers. It's just been a wild roller coaster. But the content that we landed on and episode one that we delivered today was just fire. I mean, the feedback has been incredible so far, and I'm excited because I think we're just getting started, and I see this growing exponentially over the next 12 weeks as we continue this, every 2 weeks and hosting these episodes.
Well, that's what I love. I think people are hungry for something new, something different. I think they're hungry for look, training and development has been around forever. I mean, and it's important. I saw a meme the other day, and it was like an athlete, and it was like a long, kind of a long graph, and it was like train, compete, train, compete, train, compete, train, compete. And then it went into like the corporate world of training development, and it was like train, work. And the reality is we all need moments to go, oh yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. Or to have a coach or another leader, maybe that's not even our own boss or program manager or whoever it is, to speak into us, and maybe the new person is saying the same thing that they've been saying, but it just gets through a different way. And so that's why I love this. That's why conversations are so important. I mean, if you're listening to
Absolutely.
this while you're on a treadmill or you're driving to work or you're sitting in the break room or whatever, wherever you are, conversations like have power. And I mean, especially as financial professionals in financial centers, that's why I'm so excited about this, because not only are we laying out some training material that, yeah, I think realistically has a chance, if lived out, led out, acted out, used, has a chance to, change the client first culture. But then also, I love it because conversations are powerful. And so, even to have these conversations, I can't wait for the conversations that's going to come from leaders listening to this. So, I'm excited for the journey. Can't wait.
Yeah, man. Well, let's jump in, right? So, episode one, it starts with hello. Creating client first cultures at the front line, right? So that's where we landed on, and I think it's important that you start with hello. In my role, I'm inside financial centers every day, and different ones across my footprint. And I think it's so important that that first impression and that hello. And you were telling a story today about how you went to do your research and you started going through, to financial centers across, the Tampa area, and you had some positive and some negatives, and you kind of got some insight. But I can tell you, I see it on a regular basis. And the way I feel when I walk into a branch is, sometimes it's night and day. But it's important as individuals to really connect with people. I mean, I feel like the more you are able to connect with people and build that trust in the first couple seconds of meeting someone, it's going to set the tone of the entire relationship, or if there's even a relationship, right?
Yeah. And we're probably, speaking to the choir here because, some of the leaders, the program managers, listening are like, yes, exactly. This is it. I need to get my team,
Yeah.
on the same page. That's why it's so important, I think, even as leaders to immerse ourselves in this. And I wasn't trying to throw anybody under the bus. That's why I didn't use any names. And I've been there as well. I've led stuff too that I've had to ask secret shoppers to come in and just give me an outside perspective because sometimes we get into the daily routine and the muck of everything and all the drama that sometimes happen, and maybe we just lose sight of a couple of these little things. And that's why I love that we called this whole thing deceptively simple, because everybody sees it and they're like, of course we got to start with hello. That's like the biggest no brainer. But are we doing it? Because
Right.
I went into 10 different financial centers, and two of the 10, I was greeted with hello.
Wow.
Two of the 10, And so, I had to pacify my 11-year-old with a very large 7-Eleven Slurpee. He's like, why are we going into another? I was like, it's all right. We won't be long. But that's why we started with hello, because, it really sets the tone. And especially, who is saying it, how they're saying it, the tone they're saying it. I mean, it's so incredible. And for those of us who like think about this stuff all the time, yeah, it's like, okay, this is simple, but let's be honest. Are we really doing it? And then are we really leading our people to do it and model it as well? That's the big question.
I think too, it's important to recognize, like, there's so many aspects to just saying hello, right? There's the eye contact, there's the positive energy. I mean, you can feel positive energy when people give off that frequency. It hits you, right? And I
Yep.
think that's what we're trying to teach to our frontline folks inside the financial centers, is that if you can deliver that energy and just genuinely care about people that are coming in, we have a ton of good tips for you to kind of, how you can go about doing that. But the whole idea of the series is to work with our financial professionals, our program manager, our branch managers, to really help train the frontline folks inside those financial centers that are going to have the first impact on clients, existing clients, and prospective clients as they try to grow their branches and their revenue, and really, quite honestly, the brand of the financial institution that they work for.
Yeah. And here's the thing: I think sometimes leaders, maybe we get into ruts at times, especially those of us who oversee, those frontline folks, whether it's tellers, whether it's licensed bankers, whatever role that is. Sometimes we think, well, of course they know what to do. Of course they know what to say. Of course. Why? Why? Because they got a little bit of training when they first started, because of a couple of the things and huddles. It's I love this phrase. Andy Stanley said it. What's celebrated is repeated. What's celebrated is repeated. And so are you celebrating those things? Like in a huddle, are you saying, "Hey, I just wanted to give a shout out to Angela, the way that she greets our potential customers or clients, whatever vernacular you use, amazing. Everybody give it up for Angela." I mean, even those things, they just set the tone to be able to celebrate, to go, okay. So I think sometimes we got to break out of the mold of like, of course they know, like I talked about in the episode 1 of the webcast, we were together with some branch managers, and, they just kind of let their hair down a little bit and they started talking about the different generations. This
Yeah.
is one of our biggest struggles. This is what led us together to partner. You sat me down and you're like, this is what I'm seeing. Boomers don't know how to talk to Gen Z. Gen Z does not know how to talk to Gen X. And it couldn't be clearer. And so we've got to give them the tools to be able to go, hey, you need to know this about millennials. And once you know this, it's so much easier to talk to them, or boomers, those kind of things. That's the power of it.
For the first time, I think ever, we have 4 potentially 5 generations, right, inside the financial centers. I believe that we're just not ready for it. Right? When we talk about it, and why we built out the whole thing to begin with was, think about terms of Gen X. Typically across the financial center, in my footprint, I typically see that the program managers, the branch managers, senior licensed bankers, the financial professionals, the program managers all tend to be somewhere around, Generation X.
Yep.
And they're training Gen Y and Gen Z to sell to baby boomers. And they see the world completely differently. And there's such a disconnect. And the conversations that I have with these program managers, I mean, it's so apparent when we bring the problem to the surface and then we address it. I mean, the excitement, the energy, like this is what we're seeing across the industry as probably the number one topic that isn't being addressed. And it's the most important. I was talking to a buddy of mine yesterday, one of my buddies, and basically I was saying, think about this. Another 10 years or so, the baby boomers are going to be further along, right? Who's going to be the next generation that's the focal point for financial advisors? It's going to be Gen X. And
Hmm.
I asked him, I say, hey man, you have a kid in college, right? He said, yeah. I said, what do you think about having someone his age talk to you about retiring and managing your assets? Right? And the look on his face said it all. And think about it. That's what we're facing as an industry.
Yep.
Uh, you know, how does Gen X and baby boomers relate to the culture of today for the Gen Y and the Gen Z? It's just something that really needs to be addressed. And the fact that we're doing it, it's just been amazing to watch the impact we're having on a day-to-day basis inside these financial centers.
Well, and I love that. And just that vision that started, at a Starbucks between you and I a couple years ago, to see where it's been able to come. Just a little shameless plug in the resource we're going to publish soon, the client communication playbook. But we have a whole, chart, research, to be able to hand to your team to say, hey, here are some things to look out for. Like for instance, boomers, what they value most. Well, they value experience, like just like you talked about. They value loyalty, value professionalism. So when we talk about it starts with hello, when a boomer walks in, it really does start with hello,
Oh
because you're going
yeah,
to grab them right off the bat.
and say
And
their name.
so
Even more
that's so
powerful.
important, and they love that. So, this is why this kind of stuff is so important, and why it's so important as leaders, especially as you lead your frontline teams, to be leading the way, to be, showing them. I don't know what your performance evaluation is like in your, for your company or your financial center, but it's amazing when you're able to sit down with one of your team members and say, hey, here's a couple notes, just as you're working with, as you're communicating. And it could be simple things like making sure all of our team members are smiling. We talked about that in the framework. We talked about that. I mean, they're so simple, but there's kind of three foundational pieces. You got to smile. You just you just do. There's a small part of the population, they don't smile. I get it. I understand. I was doing a training in Peoria, Illinois. Woman stands up and she's like, "I'm so tired of everybody telling me I have RBF." Now, no, no, like, no judgment. Like if you put yourself in that category, I would never put anybody else in that category.
You actually handled that pretty good at that presentation.
Yeah. Yeah, but nobody, like her face was, I mean, she was
Hey,
ticked
did you
off,
notice? Like, not to cut you off, did you notice like all her peers agreed with her? I
Yeah.
mean, in a jovial way, right? They were all like laughing and kidding, but it was pretty wild to watch.
Yeah, and like you as a leader, be who you are, right? You're the only one of you on the planet. But that doesn't mean that we don't make upgrades to ourselves. It doesn't mean that we don't look for ways to elevate our leadership And it could be as simple as every day you wake up and you tell yourself, I'm going to start every conversation with a smile. I'm going to start every conversation with a smile. It's amazing how a smile just builds the trust and it diffuses things. So if you have a customer come in and they're hot to trot, they're upset, or maybe they've been waiting for 2.5 minutes because we now live in a culture where, average attention spans under 8 seconds or 7 seconds or something. Start with a smile. It will diffuse things. And if you're able to learn the regulars' names, especially in that boomer category, especially in Gen X, look out. Look out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty wild when you think about all this stuff in action. It's important. I mean, those connections, and it makes such a difference. I'm a positive person. I always joke around. It's my one superpower, right? To be super positive
Yeah.
but I always wasn't like that. Right? I'm a recovering negative person,
Yep.
and I had to retrain my brain. And there's a lot of other sources that kind of help me become a better person, a more positive person, more energetic person. But once you're able to really, I mean, there's a ton of resources, but if you could just be authentic and positive and just breathe joy into people. I mean, even that person that's upset and angry, I mean, they're gonna back down a little bit and see that you genuinely care and you're trying to help them. And there's ways you can kind of walk through that process in order to kind of comfort them and reassure them. And those are the things that we're talking about. And they make such a big difference. And so many people ignore that,
Yep.
but it is so apparent when you walk in. The person who's just full of life and you're just attracted to them, right? Versus someone who you're standing there and they know you're there and they will not look up to make eye contact. Like there's
Right.
nothing worse than trying to make eye contact and then you're just standing there and you're starting to feel foolish. And that's one of the things I told myself, and several years ago. I got this habit of just saying hi and greeting mostly everyone I come in contact with. And when people would just like not even acknowledge the hello or the hi, I used to beat myself up like, oh, you look like an idiot. And I started realizing like, I'm never going to apologize for being who I am as a happy person or a positive person and generally saying hi and caring for other people. That's the kind of power that inside on the front line that we're trying to coach to. Because I believe if we can get that, and it's going to take time, but if we can work over that over the next 12 weeks, I think come third and fourth quarter, you're going to have a pretty big impact
Yes.
inside your financial centers. And more importantly, as a financial professional, you're going to have much more leverage and much more credibility and much more likability to those that you're working with.
Yep.
Because if there's one thing that's true, Jason, that I experienced in my career, it is the most successful programs and the most successful teams and financial professionals are those that have the best relationships with their bankers and with their tellers and with the people that they work with day in and day out. When those people like you and respect you and appreciate you, they are willing to help you because you are selling them your vision and they want to be a part of it. And that's the secret sauce. If you're
And
able to,
100%. And I just I gotta butt in because that's what we talked about at the end of the webcast with the morale multiplier. When each of those team members are just excited. I mean, it goes back to the How to Win Friends from Dale Carnegie, all the Zig Ziglar. It's all true. Like when you are obsessed with helping your team members succeed, when you're obsessed with helping your clients succeed, the success is going to come to you in a wave. And, too often, let me just back up too, as well as those of us who are managing, maybe you have some tellers who are Gen Z. And so, they're younger and you're gonna have to work with them a little bit because sometimes maybe they weren't taught to look people in the eye when they communicate. And so you got to remember about Gen Z, they're the first digital generation. They've grown up with these devices and they spent most of their life looking down at a device, right? I mean, 8 to 12 hours a day. And so they don't have the foundation of when they're talking to people, because when they talk to their peers, they're looking at their device and they're talking. So regardless, a cornerstone of communication is looking people in the eye. And so you may have to walk alongside of them and say, hey, in this financial center, when we communicate with people, we look people in the eye. So drop what you're doing, put everything down, look them in the eye. Those kind of things, being able to walk alongside of them, speak truth into them, help them succeed as a leader. You're going to do, they're going to do exactly what you just talked about. That morale is going to multiply because you're
Oh
helping
yeah,
each other succeed.
no question. I tell you, you make an interesting point. It kind of reminded me of something I heard from Vanessa Van Edwards, and she said that when we're looking at our phones or in our computers, we're naturally in the pose, the national or international sign for defeatism, because your head's down, your shoulders slumped, and you're kind of like you're automatically, in that defeated position. So she said, and I thought it was brilliant. And she said, when you're waiting for an interview, like don't be on your phone. The person comes out, the first thing they see is you like this, right? So imagine you're on your phone in your office or at the teleline, and a customer walks in, and for 10 or 15 seconds, even if it's 5 seconds, their first impression of you is bent over in this position of defeat. I thought that was like rock
Yeah,
solid genius.
it's powerful.
And if you can catch yourself doing it now, like when I'm waiting for someone, like I do that, I was the same way. I'd go into an appointment, and sometimes I'd sit in a lobby and wait for the financial professional to be get done a call or whatever, and I start looking, checking the emails, doing the stuff that I need to do. And I started realizing, man, after I heard that, I'm like, I'm sitting here in a defeated position. So now
Yep.
I walk in, I don't even, I mean, the phone's off. Like it's not even, sometimes I don't even bring it into the office anymore. And I walk in, I'll greet people, I'll smile, I'll be positive, ask people how they're doing. If someone greets me, sometimes I walk in, I just wait and walk around for a few minutes until someone, takes the time to say, who's this guy walking around in a suit, right? So, but when I'm sitting there waiting now, my head's up, and I'm
Yep.
just, I'm thinking about I'm getting mentally prepared for that meeting, what I'm going to talk about, what kind of questions I'm going to ask, what did we talk about before, how do I move the relationship forward. And I think that's the kind of stuff that, it's gold, but you're not learning that in any type of class or training until
Right. And it
it's down with
speaks
us.
to our executive presence. Cuz even, thinking about you, in the financial center waiting instead of looking at your phone, now you're observant, you're watching things. It's giving like just you being able to walk in cuz you're there to connect and all those kind of things. But it's now given you more opportunity to connect because you're noticing, you're seeing what's happening. It's the same thing with our people. Like if we could teach
The
them how to have
conversation.
that type of executive presence, and it's not the kind of presence that uh, you want your customers to feel small because you're big and no, it's that you're walking out or they're being seen. You said something earlier, and it was we've been told for years we've got to get our customers to know, like, and trust us, right? Know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust. And I agree with that. I've changed it recently to see, hear, and believe. See, hear, and believe. And so I want my customers to be like, yeah, oh yeah, Jason, yeah, he answers when I call. I ask him for something, he sends it sooner than I anticipated. He's bringing up different ideas. I want them to feel heard. Like, okay, yeah, he heard me. He made the changes that I asked, or those kind of things. And then, to believe them, to believe in them, like that's killer. And that will take your referral culture. That's why this whole series is so powerful, because these are little deceptively simple tweaks,
Yeah.
learnings, opportunities. to stoke a fire inside of your financial centers that, probably many of us, we're already doing some of these things, or maybe we did them 2 years ago and business is hard and we've had turnover and it's just like thing after thing and you're like, yeah, I don't call them on it. Yeah. Okay, this is your chance now. We're going to restoke the fire and get some of this stuff going because they're, like we said in the episode, they're not just soft skills. They're referral building skills and they all add up. I was watching a TV show yesterday. It was, back in the 1500s. I had this giant castle. And, I love construction. I love architecture, all that kind of stuff. But that giant castle was built one brick at a time. That's it, one brick. And it was like, okay, these are these little bricks that build this giant referral culture, this client first culture. And that's why we
Foundation.
started with hello. And that's why we broke down the word hello and we built it into a framework because sometimes it's easier than to go, okay, it's nice you guys are saying we should say hello more often, but it's really so much more than that. And really for us, the first part of it was H was to hear. And that goes back to this, know, like, trust, see, hear, believe, that kind of idea. Like, when you are hearing someone, you are fully present with them. And that's what we were just talking about, how important your presence is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely. I think it's gold, and we're going to continue to do these. This is the foundation, right? This is the starting block. So the first episode I thought went fantastic. I'm looking forward to the next couple episodes that we got going on. I think we're going to dive deeper. My vision for this conversation too is as we get into deeper topics and as we progress, because the idea is to have the webcast build on each other, right? So we're going to keep building every 2 weeks, build, is to how do I want to say it? It's to have the foundation, but really to have people join us and be able to take what we're doing and bring it to the financial centers and really change their cultures. I truly believe if we can change the culture inside the financial center, not only are we uplifting everyone around the financial professionals and the leaders in that program, you're going to see and have an impact on people daily, on their clients, and those clients are going to really see a difference, and that's when they're going to start bringing their friends and family, and you're going to start seeing the
Yep.
attitudes change. So this is really just the beginning. Today was the beginning. And as we get deeper into these, what I like to see is, we're going to bring more real life scenarios. We're gonna be working with a lot of the financial professionals and a lot of program managers to uncover stories and interactions. And part of this podcast going forward is going to be able to dive into those individual experiences. We won't be naming names, but we'll be talking. We'll be giving out scenarios, and then kind of figure
Yep.
out if it was the best way to handle it, or the success stories, or that's kind of what my vision is for the podcast as we kind of dive deeper and deeper each and every week. Love to get your thoughts on that, Jason.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll be using tons of examples and, comment in the YouTube, in the comments. You let us know, email us if you're not getting the slide deck, if you're not getting the manager's resource sheet, the worksheet, let Dan know so he can get you those because we have a ton of resources to go. And the reality is like what I love about this is we're here to help you, our listeners. We're here to help you in the financial centers succeed. And so use us as a tool, like use us as a resource, because sometimes it's nice to have a third party resource, that's you're able to get ideas from and, bring some fresh life. And so I'm excited. This is going to be great.
Yeah. For those that know me in the professional world, in the firm that I work with, there's restrictions for me to give out invites to people outside, that hasn't that where their firms haven't been approved. So feel free, again, if you're interested, just contact us directly, and we'll get to the information one way or the other, either through Speak with People or through my firm. And we want to be here for you and be your resource to help build up your teams. So I'm excited. I think today went awesome. I think this little podcast went great, and it's only going to be great things from here, Jason.
That's gonna be
Great
awesome.
partnership.
This is gonna be awesome. I can't wait for the next one. And again, comment below. Let us know some of the thoughts that you're thinking. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you'd like to hear us talk about some stuff. Let us know. Can't wait for the next one.
Are we supposed to say subscribe and share? Or subscribe and like, right? Right here, right here.
Yeah, that is a part of every podcast. Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Yeah, I know what I'm doing, I think.
Yeah, you do. I love it.
All right, brother. Hey,
All
man. This is awesome. We'll catch up soon. And I appreciate everything you do for me and for my firm and our territory. It's been great. I'm excited for the next couple of weeks.
All right, we'll see you.
All right, brother.